Welcome to Terror in Bloom, the podcast that brings you voices from the first wave of the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic from Maryland and across the U.S. On episode 6 of Terror in Bloom, interviewees will discuss numerous topics surrounding schools and COVID-19, including the shutdown and virtual learning.
Attention! Shelter-in-place orders are in effect for Maryland.
It's hard. And all these kids going off to college, I mean, a freshman year, that's new anyway for them to go off to college. You know, they're not home, they're going off to college, and everything's going to be strange for them anyway. And so to go off to college, I'm like, oh boy. So I have a nephew going to, he's going to be a freshman in college this year, and his brother is a junior, I guess. So he's already been through the part of it, but the younger one, he's just going to be a freshman. So that's all different too. And we'll see how it goes, because some of the college, he's actually going up to, to be in college. Some of the colleges are doing the virtual. Some of them started in school. Well, they've called it off because there's been partying. But that's what college kids do. So I don't know, that's what college kids are going to do. They're going to party. I don't care what you say to them, they're going to party.
So Friday the 13th of March, our principal pulled us in for a meeting at the end of the day. They had sent out an email to parents that went out before the dismissal of school saying, hey, take them home. So all the parents swarmed the school before school was out. We were not supposed to tell the kids that they were not going to come back for the next couple of weeks, but they mistakenly sent out the thing to the parents. The parents panicked. Oh my gosh, it's at school. So they all came and got the kids. And so our principal said, basically treat it like we all got in trouble and we're getting paid, administration pay for a couple of weeks. And so the first week or two, this is right before Easter break. So the first couple of weeks we had to call the parents and talk to them and, just reassure them, make contacts, get them, we had to figure out platforms. So we got onto Class Dojo. We got all of our families connected to that. And then the next step was to find out if they had computers that they could use or tell them where they could get district computers. And then, so at pretty much all of spring, every week, the teachers would take a video of themselves. So we'd send it to one staff member. They'd put it together in a nice little video telling the families that were thinking about them. And that made them feel, nice. And teaching in the spring was pretty much, it kind of was like abandoned ship, like take what you need to teach for the rest of the year. And then if you got to come back, you could only be in there for 30 minutes. So it's like, okay, I had a map. I need to grab this, and this. And then it was pretty much a free for all. We, had to keep teaching our curriculum, but we could choose how we did it. I decided to use Class Dojo because it was an easy platform for myself and for the parents. And now that we're back, the district says you have to use Aries for communication. You have to use Google Classroom for teaching. And then what was the third one? There's some other platform that we're supposed to use, but they basically, starting of this fall, they said you have to use these things. And I'm still using Dojo on the side because my families are already linked to that. I was teaching TK and K in spring, and then I looped up to first grade and kindergarten. So a lot of my classes stayed the same, which I think is very lucky because I know the parents, I know the kids, I know where they're at. I know if they participated in spring, learning or not, or if they started it and they just said, oh, it's too hard, and then it just gave up and I wouldn't see them for a while. Oh, Zoom, that was the third platform we had to use. At the beginning, when we had to be kind of like California was on a lockdown, I don't know if everyone else was and there was even a curfew. And so between the lockdown and the curfews, it was kind of just very weird. I think at the beginning of Corona, people were very kind to each other and understanding. And then I think now it's a me society. Well, I need that. And I don't think people are as kind anymore. And I know toilet paper ran out. So we'd go to the store before they opened. There would be a huge line. It looked longer because everyone had to be 6 feet apart. And so it's almost like a battle plan. Okay, my husband was going to go that way, go get cleaning products. I was going to go this way and go get toilet paper and meet up. And then you don't leave your cart unattended because, it's weird. People are like watching and checking out your cart. And I don't know, it's just kind of I had a little bit of anxiety grocery shopping, not quite as much as my sister, but it was just such a weird feeling. So, my husband and I were fortunate we could both work from home and we would still get our regular salaries. And then the wildfires started in the fall, so then we couldn't go outside. And in the fall, I started teaching in my classroom. So I was teaching in my room, no students, but that way I had all my curriculum. It was just a little bit easier because I haven't been in first grade for, I don't know, a couple decades. And so, and it's all new material. So I kind of wanted access to all my stuff. But partway through the fall, we had to abandon our classroom and then teach from home because the smoke was so bad. And I know my classroom is definitely not air sealed because I could smell the smoke. And whenever they spray our classroom in the summer, water seeps in and ruins some of my stuff. And also I had a student teacher, which I signed up for before I thought about it. I said, oh, I probably don't want another person in my classroom near me, but it ended up working out well. It kind of took us a while of kind of like, I would set my computer down and then when she needed to plug into where I had it, it was almost like a dance. We were staying, 6 feet apart. And so it was kind of interesting. Right now, my biggest concerns are my students in their education, especially writing. Not everybody tunes in, or if they tune in, I have one little boy that keeps leaving his Zoom whenever I say, okay, get out a piece of paper, and he's gone. Some parents are at home with them and they're frustrated because, they didn't train to become a teacher, so they're not sure how to help their child. Other parents are at work because I work in a low income area. And a lot of the parents that do have jobs, they have to report to their jobs or they don't get paid. A lot of them work at stores or fast food restaurants. And if they don't go to work, they don't get paid. So this one mom of 5 children, she's a single mom. And she's like, well, I can't get them on Zoom. And the last, because last spring when she did, her utilities bill went up so high. She's like, I can't pay that. So there are some people can get free internet in our district if they need it. That we gave all the students laptops and hotspots. Those basically the laptops came out of our classroom before COVID. We had laptop carts in every classroom in our school at least. And now the cart's gone and the kids have all the computers and we're probably never going to see them back. And I don't know if I want to because they're probably very gritty. Because the computers that I have in class, whenever I have to do stuff on the mouse pad, they're just gross and nasty. My son, he finished college in December, which I'm so thankful for. So he didn't have to do online learning. He was basically at home with us, literally locked down with us, looking for jobs. And he got a position on the naval base where your mom used to work. And so we took a couple trips down there and found him a place to live. And he's got grandma and grandpa down there. And so the last time I saw him was in July. And because of COVID, his travel is restricted. He can go certain places in Southern California, but the farthest up the valley he can go is Bakersfield. So a couple of, my dad needs to get his car maintained. He'll go with grandpa just to get out of town. So I haven't seen him since July and hoping to see him at Christmas, hoping to drive down and see him. So I don't know, I'm worried about the family that, we can't see because, you have to fly to see them, and flying, I'm kind of concerned about that too, so.
Okay, so I was basically a fully functioning board member. I had full voting rights like all of the other school board members, and my job was to serve as a student voice. So in any capacity, I particularly served on the policy committee, which means that I focused more on the lawmaking aspect or the policies for the school system. But when it came to general votes, I did things from budget to anything really that came at us. And education was heavily hit by the coronavirus. So that was something really localized and something I thankfully had a big part in. It was a huge learning curve again, because none of us were prepared for this kind of an emergency situation. And this is a pretty specific example, but because of my role in the school board, we were making decisions on if we're gonna close school or not. And I remember, I think we had sent some kids out to Future Business Leaders of America. That's an organization. They sent them out to a field trip in Baltimore that day. And that night, we were trying to decide, do we bring the kids back or do we let them stay in Baltimore County? Because a lot of other conferences were getting shut down. I drove, I think it was about 8:30 at night. I drove over to the Board of Education, sat with our communications director, and had a conversation about what this was going to look like. And at that point in time, we were pretty sure that we'd have to close school down and get those kids back home safely. So at that moment, as a school board member, I had to kind of put on the hat of, if I was a student in this situation, what would I want my adults to be taken care of? And the first thing I thought of was I would want to be safe, and I expect my adults to keep me safe. So if that means, canceling a field trip and getting us back on a bus home, that's what I would want. So that's kind of the decision that we took. And there was a few phone calls involved as well with the superintendent and other members on the school board. It definitely, again, a tough situation, but I would applaud how quickly everyone acted to make sure that we were safe, no matter how sad or stressful the situation was.
There's pluses and minuses. I already know my children from having them other years. And so I know that there's some that would be naughtier if they were in person. But I really like being with my children. If they can't get to the page, I like to help them. When they come in the classroom, we always hug or high five their choice. And then they just, I really do miss having them near me right now, though, with all the, they touch everything. Even on the computer, I see them picking their noses. And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay right now that they're not in the classroom. I get it, but I really do miss them. And I do like having them in person. Some days it's more tiring because obviously I'd be teaching all day long, but versus just the 3 hours and then making up the work for the rest of the day and then contacting their parents and all that. So I don't know. It's just, I really do miss them because I don't feel like I'm as effective as I could be. And sometimes if a child's doing something, you can just stand near them and they'll say, oh, well, stop. Well, I can't get near them. I can't stare at them. They can just turn their camera off, or log out.
Before we even get to e-learning, basic needs of our students. So many of our students rely on the school to provide meals for them. So the biggest thing we focus on is how do we get meals to kids? How do we make sure they're fed before we move on to the e-learning component? And our school system was so fast to act on that. We set up temporary meal sites where kids could come and pick up meals, making sure they're fed. Once that's taken care of, Chromebooks. How do we make sure everyone has access to technology in the first place before we get e-learning going? So then we started to take the Chromebooks out of the schools and give them to the students who did not have any at home to make sure we have as much access as possible. Now that that's taken care of, we come to the bigger component of how do we educate 86,000 students online when we don't have an online learning system for all of our classes. So that was definitely difficult. Our curriculum team was fast to come up with temporary online instruction, basically to get kids going and learning. And I think we had a 2-week break. And then after that, we went right into school online. So some of the classes were synchronous, some of them were asynchronous. I know that for me as a senior, we didn't know if we were still gonna have AP exams or IB exams. Those were then canceled, but our teachers were still required to have some kind of learning. And that's something I'm grateful for, because I feel like if all learning had been shut down, now that I'm in my first week of college, I would not remember a thing. So I'm glad that my teachers continue to teach and make sure that we were practicing those skills, even if we did not have exams. But coming back to my role on the school board, a big topic of contention was how are we going to grade, right? We're leaving the third marking period kind of just there, right? We don't really have a plan for that. Kids went home, they didn't get to take their quarterly exams. And then for the fourth marking period, is it fair to have A through E grades like we normally do? So after a lot of advocating and making sure that we were doing this as equitably as possible, we decided on doing the pass-fail system, which I know so many students reached out to me for. I got so many messages, emails, conversations with students in student government, in our Chesapeake Regional Association of Student Councils, saying that this is the most equitable option for them, because they are grappling with a situation like the rest of us that no one has seen before. And our goal as educators and people who are making policies for educators is to make educating as easy as possible. So if kids are stressing about grades, how are they taking care of their mental health? How are they taking care of the basic idea of coping with something so tragic for a lot of students? So all of that being said and done, we decided on the pass-fail system, and I think that was something that was really near and dear to my heart. And I wanted to make sure that we took care of that as soon as possible.
TK and K is a lot easier. You basically teach kindergarten, you have different expectations for the TK kids, but kindergarten and first grade are so different, and there's like a big leap with where they're supposed to be. And so ideally, I was supposed to keep all the same kids, but some of my kindergartners moved. So I had these kindergartners that are brand new some of my TK kids that now are kindergartens moved. So I had openings, and I have these kids that have never been in school, never held a pencil. So going along with my kindergartners that basically kind of already had it. So it's a little bit hard. I start at 8:30. We only are allowed to teach them for 3 hours a day on Zoom. So I start at 8:30. And I start with the whole class for about an hour. And then I just throw everyone else in the waiting room, and I keep my ELD, my English language development children in Zoom with me. I used to have a 10-minute break, but then they would disappear. So now we Zoom right after the whole group before they, just log out. And it's a mandatory requirement. We need to teach them for 20 minutes a day, every day. And I have 5 students that are English language developers. 4 are Hispanic and 1 speaks Dari. And I had all of those same 5 last year, so that's very helpful. And then I send them to the to the waiting room. And then I have a kindergarten Zoom only. And then I tell them they're done for the day. They have asynchronous work to do, like independent work. And then I pull in my first graders for their Zoom. They have about 50 more minutes with me. And so sometimes I look at their English language arts and their math lesson and see who has more that day. And so in that first morning time, I bring some of that in there, or we blend and we segment together and do beginning sounds together. But now they have 2 different high frequency word lists, and everything's so different. We also every day have to do a social, emotional, like kind of like touch bases with them, see how they're doing, different lessons about their feelings, and talk to them with how they're doing. If students don't come to Zoom very regularly, we have to enter them into a Google document, and then the office follows up. And we also have a liaison that doesn't work for the district, so she can do some different things that we can't do to try to get the students to come. I have most of my kids come, except for there's one girl I see like once a week, and another student that I had last year, since mom's at work, her and her siblings are at grandma and grandpa's house. And on every Friday, I noticed they were absent, and we asked them, I guess grandma and grandpa have some sort of, what's it called? A religious holiday every Friday. So they don't come. I don't know exactly what it is. So it's kind of hard because it's hit or miss. The students, like I put on Facebook, I say, hey, let's get to work. And then nope, they're gone, or they log out. The little boy I had last year that had sleep apnea, sometimes I can look and he's asleep on Zoom, or one family that I hardly ever see the girl when she's finally on, she's asleep. They log on her computer, they stick it on her bunk bed, and then they leave the room. And so we need to watch her sleep. So that kind of irritates me. So I just kind of log her out, especially because when she gets up, she's not dressed all the way. So,
Okay.
so yeah, I kind of also feel like a voyeur sometimes, because when I put them in the waiting room, then we pull them back in, and it's like, if they don't know that we're back, we can see everything in their house, and sometimes we can hear it. I'm like, uncomfortable. Put them back in the waiting room until they, do, until they show up. Give them more time. So I had to retrain my kids. They kept doing this, is asked to go to the bathroom, and I'm like, sweetie, if you got to go. I'm sharing a screen, I can't see all their hands, and I don't want anyone having an accident and saying, well, Mrs. Grace won't let me go to the bathroom. I'm like, just go. I can't, there's kind of a fine line. They're at their own home. I can't really make the rules. I told the kids, yeah, I don't care if they eat while they're on Zoom, because I'm just happy that they're there. We talked about manners, chew with your mouth closed, don't talk with food in your mouth. And then if it's like your reading time, then set it aside for a minute, read, and then you can continue to eat. So many things I never thought I'd have to think about.
I think for our school system, it is. My sister is in middle school, and I've been seeing, the kind of setup, and it's definitely a lot more organized than it was in the beginning. I know Drake, he's a new student board member. He's doing a great job in advocating for similar things that I did, and pushing the needle forward when it comes to that. So really glad that that's being done. And I think our school system specifically is doing a great job on that end. Obviously, there will be road bumps. I started online college this week, and it has not been a smooth ride by any means. But I think we are in a better space than we were a few months ago, which is always good to know and reassuring for parents and students involved in the process.
Yeah, I do have a little kindergartner. Yeah, he's a kindergartner this year. He is hit or miss if he attends. And if he attends, like today, I could see him, he's like this, and I could see like lights change. I said, sweetie, stand up, get your computer. Now you're going to walk, go somewhere else where the TV isn't. So he's home alone with his siblings. And every time when I say, where's your math book? I don't know. And I'm like, honey, I packed your backpack. So the district bought everybody backpacks, and we put all their books in it. And then they had to do a drive-by to get all their materials. We also gave everybody headphones. So that way, because we're thinking if we're all talking at the same time on all these Zooms with all these siblings, it's going to be hard. So we wanted them to wear headphones. So I had that boy, because I knew his mom wasn't at home, and I her too much, because I don't want her to feel like, she's struggling as it is to keep it all together. And so I said to him, well, get your computer. Okay, now walk around your house until you find Megan or Sophia or Maurizio, find a brother or sister. And he found one. The kid thought he was playing chase. I'm like, Maurizio, stop. He's like, what? And so I said, get the computer. And so I said, he needs this book. He needs to have paper. He needs to have this. Oh, okay. So I put it on the big brother that was going to be in 7th grade. I figured he can handle his little brother's books. So I don't know. I feel like I'm nagging from afar with some of them. Well, my kids try to type their own names and they can't spell. And finally, like this one girl kept changing her name, and I kept changing it back because my student teacher was teaching. So I had the time to sit on it and keep doing it. She kept changing it. And I finally took myself off me and said, sweetie, if you're going to spell your last name, at least spell it right. And then I said, leave it alone. This one little girl says, oh, well, I don't know how to read when I show her stuff. And I said, because every time I talk to you and I'm showing you flashcards and we're going over words and sounds, you're like this, talking to other people in your household. Like she's on mute or she has headphones on. She's like this, and you can see her talking to people. And I'm like, I started calling her out. I said, sweetie, I'm teaching you how to read right now. You got to pay attention right now. And she's like, oh, okay. But I'm like, oh my goodness. So it's hard. And then I have a teacher's aide for a whole 1 hour a day. And so what we do is I've figured out who's low and what. And so I throw out breakout rooms and I say, okay, these kids go see Miss Bishop and you're going to work on, Miss Bishop knows what they're working on. If they're working on counting, number recognition, reading, sounds, letters, whatever they're working on. But then the problem is if they don't click, I can't make them click it. If they choose not to, then they're kind of, or if they're late to Zoom and they miss the boat. So that's kind of hard. And right now is testing time for report cards. The district said, oh, just work with them in small groups. I'm like, I can't say, ooh, what letter is this? And you 5 don't say anything, So basically a lot of my one-on-one testing is falling on my teacher's aide, just because she can go in a breakout room with them one at a time. I might, try to make arrangements with some of the parents. Hey, can I meet them at this time? Or some of the kids I meet with for reading in the afternoon. We have Zooms in the afternoon. I have different reading groups, but that's optional for parents. We can't say you have to be there, but they usually are, just because it's something for their child to do, and kind of like we're babysitting their kids, kind of. We have the kids suggested show and tell every Friday. I said, okay, fine. And I finally said no weapons, like they have the fake, swords and stuff. And I wasn't going to call CPS about that, because you can clearly tell that they are toys. We have, over here we have our martial arts weapons, which, technically they could see on my Zoom, but no, I haven't been keeping up with that. That's just, because you do feel like a little voyeur when you're in their home. Or certain houses, you can tell that they're arguing, and so you're like, mute. So, put on your headphones, sweetie, so I don't hear any background noise. I'm used to that with my parents. We get my parents and my husband and Zach and Barb on Zoom, and they would all go on the same Zoom thing. So I had to figure out, okay, how can I delete a kid if they're doing something bad or something bad's happening in their background and stuff. So I used them all as guinea pigs. And so my mom would be sitting there in one room, she's disappearing because she kept leaning back, and we're like, where'd you go? In spring, whenever I'd go to staff meetings, I would use virtual backgrounds. And since I couldn't go anywhere, I had a different background every meeting, just so it looked like I went somewhere. Have a lot of, Red Rock Canyon, or, different places I've been, the Pinnacles, just different places, the grandparents' farm. But yeah, I don't use them because how things disappear and stuff. And then kids wanted to see our classroom. And so after the movers came today, I walked around with my little laptop showing them what got moved and how it got moved. And at the beginning of the year, I walked the laptop around the room to give everybody a tour, because, some kids had never seen the room. I told my kids, I gave them their old same cubbies back. I figured they might as well just keep their same cubbies. Kids don't do virtual backgrounds. They did see into their house a lot less, but I think a lot of our parents, they're barely able to get some of that, Google Classroom. I don't put a lot of assignments on Google Classroom. I pretty much send a list, because I know what workbooks they have at home. I said, okay, do this page, read this story, write a journal, and I give links to different things, different books for the kids to read at their level and stuff. But I basically give a list of the work that they do independently, and I'll put it in Google Classroom on the stream, but I don't do a lot of Google Classroom assignments. I tried it a couple of times, and only 10 parents were able to do it. And I could tell it's not my child's work, it's the parents' work. So it's kind of like, if your parent's not computer skilled, then the kid's not going to do the assignment. I was kind of feeling that out, and our district did want us to do tests, assessments, send them home in Google Classroom. Like, oh, heck no. I'd rather spend time with myself and my paraeducator, pulling them out at other times to test them one-on-one. When I had the student teacher, I would hold up papers and, okay, what's this one? How many here? And I did as much testing as I could ahead of time before the student teacher moved on to 6th grade, just because I knew I didn't want to send it home, because the few diagnostic tests that did get sent home, I know it's not at the kid's level. The parents helped them. And so now their computer programs are at a level that's not the kid's appropriate level. It's been challenging to reach some of our families, especially with some of the families that don't speak English. So, I reach out another way. And another reason why I still use Dojo to communicate with families is they can hit translation, and they can read what I write, and they can type in their language, and I hit translation and I can read it. So that's helpful. Stores hours have changed. We used to always go to certain stores, like my husband always go to the grocery store at 4 a.m. Now he can't. Some challenges are some people not following the rules. You're supposed to all do this. Some people don't. And then it just makes everybody else upset. can't find certain products in the store. It's weird what you can't find. Like we stopped seeing caffeine-free soda, and so if we find it, it's very rare. It's just kind of hit or miss what's available and what's not available. No, it's just social wise. I haven't seen some of my friends obviously since March. A couple of my friends and I, we meet every other week on Zoom. We're having a staff get together on Zoom. So, but it's like people are adapting. I kind of think that once everything is, it's done and we have, people have a vaccine and all that, I have a feeling that some big businesses are not going to have as big, big office buildings anymore. I think a lot of people like to work at home. And I think a lot of people are liking not having to go out as much. I mean, I'm an introvert, so is my husband, so is my son. So it didn't bug us. And, we have a big enough house where we all kind of had our own space. But I don't know, I kind of think it's going to change a lot of things. I had a lot of parents at the very beginning in spring. The moms were working with their kids, and these were the moms who knew very well because their kids were kind of difficult. And then they got to the point where like, oh, okay, they stopped showing up at Zooms. They stopped doing this because they were just done. They kind of got to see why I called them pretty much every day when we were in session, because their children don't want to do what they don't want to do. And and it was kind of like a battle trying to get them to do their work. And they're like, yeah, I don't want to. And so their moms just kind of gave up. A lot of parents, if they wanted to be teachers, they would have gone to school to, learn how to educate children. So some of them, especially in my district, they're not really interested in doing that. They don't have a lot of the skills that it takes. And it's just, they originally when first Corona started, they said, oh, when we go back to school, kindergarten teachers and students in second grade, K through 2 don't have to wear any masks, because they said they're still learning how to pronounce the words. They need to see your mouth. And I'm like, that doesn't make me feel good. So apparently that's gone. So there's lots of interesting things at the very beginning of this. I mean, I honestly thought when they gave us a couple weeks off before Easter and then Easter break and then the week after, I thought, wow, 4 weeks, that's a long break. I didn't know it was gonna, kind of keep going. So
it's hard. It's not a one size fits all for everybody, and some parents want to send their kids back, some don't. Some teachers don't want to go back.
Oh yeah. There were a lot of.
If there's teachers that are teaching, and they might have an elderly parent that's living with them. So now they're going back to school. They're going to be with other teachers and other kids, and now they're going to go back to their elderly parent that's living with them. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, I know they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. It's not perfect right yet, that's for sure. But I'm glad I'm not dealing with it. I'm glad I don't have to deal with any of that. But anyway, so I mean, I know they're teachers and that's their job, but they didn't sign up for this. They didn't sign up to be teaching during a pandemic, and they got to think of their health too. And and then there's kids that have health issues. There's handicapped children. There's I have a niece with cerebral palsy. I mean, she's a little bit older. She's in her 20s, and she lives in a group home, so she's not going into a school situation. But still, there's kids with issues that it's probably not safe for them to go back into a school.
Like cystic fibrosis?
Yeah. Well, she has cerebral palsy, but any of those, and I mean, I know school is important to the kids. I mean, I know it. They need school, and they need to be with their friends, and they need all that. They need the interaction with the other kids. They need the interaction with the teachers. Some kids can't handle doing a class online. If they have issues, they can't handle sitting in front of a computer all day long. They need that interaction with teachers and stuff.
So I start off on Monday, and I have a pretty packed schedule. A lot of times, like, my teachers don't know how to work the technology, so that's something that the students are kind of teaching the teachers how to do, right? Like, how do you work with this new technology? Overall, I think I'm attending the University of Maryland. They're doing a great job with making sure that we still feel a sense of community online. So I've joined a few organizations, cultural organizations, to build that sense of community, and that has been awesome. Meeting some really great people. But as far as it comes to the academics, nothing compares to learning in person, right? Like I'm a hands-on learner, and I need to be in class and ask questions and group work. So it is much harder to be learning online for me, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be. And I think it'll be an adjustment period, but definitely something that I can work with, and I hope other students feel the same way. My biggest concerns for college right now are first off, I don't know if we're still going to be having hybrid classes or not. So when school does reopen, is it going to be safe for it to reopen? How much choice will students have? Some of my friends are on campus right now, and I don't know if, they're just going to be displaced and not have a place to go if my campus decides to shut down even while I'm staying at home. As far as advocating for equity, I'm part of the School of Public Policy, and my specification in that is education policy. So any way that I can advocate through my educational experience and really becoming more informed about education, housing issues, other issues that tie into education as well, is how I plan to advocate when it comes on to my professional experience in the future. But obviously I'm going to be part of student government, and I'm going to be part of other student organizations. I've been selected to be a policy ambassador. So that means I advertise the School of Public Policy and help make sure that students' concerns are brought up to administration. So, kind of finding ways to do what I did in high school, but on a bigger scale in university.
Well, I think there's a slight possibility. Our campus has, I think, 3 special ed classes on campus. We used to have, I think, 5. And I think that some of the kids at home are not getting what they need at school. So I think some of the special ed classes might come back in November, and, just they would stay in their own room, and just, and then their paraeducators would stay with them. I'm not 100% sure about that, but there was talk about that just because it's, they're not receiving a very good education, virtually. And I know they were talking at our school district, if we did go back to hybrid, how many parents wanted to have only still distant learning. And so I'm thinking, so I have to teach kids physically a couple days a week, and then give the other half of the class asynchronous work to do. And then I somehow am teaching other people virtually. It was crazy. So I don't know. I think for now we're at the January, we're waiting to see what happens. And yeah, they're ridiculous, some of the options. And we've had some high schools that already had hybrid, then they break out, and so then some people have to be quarantined. And the universities around here, UC Davis and Sac State, and UC Santa Cruz, my son has a friend that goes there, their rest of the year they're on computers. And then one of our friends works at Sac State computer ed department. And so he says, yeah, we put together these little kits, and then the students have to, drive by, or, kind of do a drive-through and give it to them. And they kind of check out some of the technology, and then they have to turn it back in when they're done, and then get a different kit. So that way, some of the people in college have hands-on stuff that they have to do for like engineering and stuff. I drive by the elementary school around the corner. The kids are outside at recess. They're not on the jungle gym. That's all taped off, but they have tetherball or balls. None of the kids are in masks, just the yard duty is. So I thought, well, that's kind of weird.